Welcome back, my friends, to the diabetes show that never ends. We're back today with an After Dark episode. We're going to be speaking with a person we're calling Phoebe. She is 50 years old, has 5 children. 2 of them have type 1 diabetes. Her 12-year-old daughter was diagnosed at 6, her other daughter at 8. We're going to talk about diabetes, some problems she's having within her family structure, and so much more. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. If you're newly diagnosed, check out the Bold Beginnings series. Find it at juiceboxpodcast.com up in the menu, in the featured tab of the private Facebook group, or go into the audio app you're listening in right now and search for Juicebox Podcast Bold Beginnings. Juicebox is one word, Juicebox Podcast Bold Beginnings. This series is perfect for newly diagnosed people. Don't forget to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com. All you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. Your kids mean everything to you, and you'd do anything for them, especially if they're at risk. So when it comes to type 1 diabetes, screen it like you mean it. Because if even just one person in your family has type 1, your child is up to 15 times more likely to get it. But just one blood test can help you spot it early. So don't wait. Talk to your doctor about screening. Tap now or visit screenfortype1.com to get more info and screen it like you mean it. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. Learn more and get started today at contournext.com/juicebox. Can I call you Phoebes, or do you like Phoebe better?
I like Phoebes better.
All right, Phoebes, let's do it. You are just about 50 years old. You have 2 kids with type 1 diabetes. Let's get their ages, rough ages, like teens, younger. Where are they at?
Of the diabetic children?
Yeah.
Or all of them?
Now, worry about those other kids. Let's talk about the kids with diabetes.
The oldest one is 12.
Mm-hmm. A girl.
Diagnosed in 2018.
2018. So diagnosed around 9 years old. And what about?
No, 6. 2018, she was diagnosed.
Wait, oh my God, I forgot what year it was. Excuse me. That's
2024.
Very embarrassing. I was like, oh, my time is slipping away. I'm sorry. At 6 years old. And then the other?
The other is now 8, and she was diagnosed 2021 at age 5, right before she turned 5, right. I believe.
And you have other children. Are they older or younger or mixed?
They are older. We have 3 teenagers, and our oldest, she's 19. She was diagnosed with celiac in 2020, right before the COVID shutdown, right within about 2 weeks of the COVID shutdowns.
What about other autoimmune in your family? Anything else besides the celiac?
Well, we did not figure this out until our first diagnosis. I have a cousin with type 1. I have 2 cousins with Hashimoto's. And then on my husband's side, they didn't even know there was type 1, and his mom didn't know that her dad had type 1, and her sister has type 1. She's still living, but they were both diagnosed in their late, like 30s and 40s.
No kidding. Well, that's quite a pile, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
And I knew I had a cousin that had type 1 diabetes, but no one explained to me that our kids were at risk for it. I was just clueless. No idea.
Took you by surprise?
Yes, her diagnosis did. It was summer, very hot, humid summer, and she just seemed sleepy, and she didn't want to play so much, which was unusual. And we had just done a well visit about 6 weeks before. Everything showed fine at the well visit. And they actually said she needs to lose a few pounds, they told me. She's 6 years old. And after a few weeks, I thought, wow, she's starting to lose some weight.
That was easy.
Yes, wow, she looks thinner. And then I was starting to put it together. I even made a Facebook post about our kids, because our son that's 2 years older than her, he was always hungry, wanting to eat. And I was kind of joking in the post because we've got hungry and thirsty because she's always thirsty. She's thirsty all the time.
Mm.
And it still did not click until one evening she drank a whole bottle of water. I think it was a 16-ounce bottle of water. And she looked at me and she said, "Mom, I'm still thirsty." And then it was before bedtime, but you know how you start. I went on one of my mom groups. I said, "I've got a kid. She's kind of tired. She's been thirsty." And everyone said, "You have to get her to the emergency room right now. It's type 1 diabetes." And we've got 5 kids, so I don't like to go to the hospital unless I have to. So my husband had chronic migraines, so he spent a lot of time in the emergency room.
I see.
For all of that. And so absolutely hate, but you have to be dying for me to take you to the hospital. So the pediatrician, I had a late afternoon appointment and I packed up the car thinking we're going to go to the beach after this appointment because it's not going to be anything. I'm just being paranoid. So we see the pediatrician. They did a finger stick and we knew nothing about diabetes. And the nurse that came in, she said it's 500. I'm like, oh, okay. Because
Great.
I didn't know what that meant.
I got to go. We're going to the beach. See you.
Yeah. Yes. And then she said, "Let me do another one." I'm like, okay. And she did another one in the 500s. And it still did not occur to me. I had no idea what was going on. So the pediatrician, he comes in. He said, "Are you here today because you thought maybe your daughter could have type 1 diabetes?" And I said, "Well, I don't think she really has it, but I just thought we better be safe and rule it out."
Yeah, these people on Facebook told me, and I was like, oh, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're just overly concerned because we would never have this in our family. And he looks at me, he said, "You need to get her in the car right now. And you're going to the hospital and you're not going to stop and you're not going to let her fall asleep in the car." And I said, "Well, we were going to go to the beach and get something to eat." He says, "No, you're not going to the beach. You're not stopping for food. You're going directly to the emergency room. I'm calling. You get her there as soon as possible." So that's when I started to freak out because he told me my kid had diabetes. And my oldest kid, she had went in with me and her daughter for the appointment. The others, they were waiting out in the car, for us to go to the beach. And I come in the car all crying and, don't let her fall asleep. And she didn't have any idea what was going on. My oldest daughter did. She knew. She was very calm. She's very level. She's not like me. She was very calm. But we got to the hospital and this little girl of ours, she always hated needles. She was afraid of needles and everything. Up until that day, we got her in the hospital. She did not cry at all, not for any of the IVs, the finger sticks, the shots, nothing. She just took it. It was amazing. Yeah. I think she knew she had been sick because later I've talked to her about it and she said she remembers laying on the floor being tingly and not feeling well, but she didn't know how to tell. She didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
so
how to communicate all that. Right. Wow. She's probably just happy to feel better. Needles or not. From the very beginning, your kids mean everything to you. That means you do anything for them, especially if they're at risk. So when it comes to type 1 diabetes, screen it like you mean it. Now, up to 90% of type 1 diagnoses have no family history. But if you have a family history, you are up to 15 times more likely to develop type 1. Screen it like you mean it because type 1 diabetes can develop at any age. And once you get results, you can get prepared for your child's future. So screen it like you mean it. Type 1 starts long before there are symptoms, but one blood test could help you spot it early before they need insulin and could lower the risk of serious complications like diabetic ketoacidosis or DKA. Talk to your doctor about how to screen for type 1 diabetes because the more you know, the more you can do. So don't wait. Tap now or visit screenedfortype1.com to learn more. Again, that's screenedfortype1.com and screen it like you mean it. The Contour NextGen blood glucose meter is sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast, and it's entirely possible that it is less expensive in cash than you're paying right now for your meter through your insurance company. That's right. If you go to my link, contournext.com/juicebox, you're going to find links to Walmart Amazon, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Kroger, and Meijer. You could be paying more right now through your insurance for your test strips and meter than you would pay through my link for the Contour NextGen and Contour Next test strips in cash. What am I saying? My link may be cheaper out of your pocket than you're paying right now, even with your insurance. And I don't know what meter you have right now. I can't say that. But what I can say for sure is that the Contour NextGen meter is accurate. It is reliable, and it is the meter that we've been using for years. ContourNext.com/Juicebox. And if you already have a Contour meter and you're buying test strips, doing so through the Juicebox Podcast link will help to support the show.
Yeah, because someone is actually telling her what is going on. But she did get very sick by the time they were going to put her in the ICU because she started vomiting, and they gave her the anti-nausea medication, and she was vomiting for a long time, but that we got it under control eventually. But where we live, there is not an endocrinologist at the hospital. It hasn't been since we've had to go to the hospital for some other things. So we did not see an endocrinologist at all for hospital stay.
Yeah.
They sent us a diabetes educator and a nurse practitioner to get us set up for our training.
How long after this diagnosis does the next one happen?
Well, that was August 24th, 2018. And then 2020, in late February, our oldest was diagnosed with celiac.
About a year and a half later. And then,
September of 2021 was the other type 1.
Wow.
So it was within 3 years.
3 years, that happened.
Yes. And then the second one, because I was on high alert with the first one, we got 5 kids. I just knew in my mind, can't explain it. I knew that she was going to get diabetes. It sounds crazy, but I just knew she was going to get it. We did the trial net. The 2 oldest, they did not want to do the trial net tests. The 2 oldest did not. The 3rd oldest, he did it. He tested negative for trial net. Our youngest that was diagnosed in 2021, I think she tested for only 2 of the autoantibodies. But we switched. We went from our area. We travel 2 hours away for all of our endocrinology now. Mm-hmm. They do a really good job where we're at now. That was the first time. We did not see an endocrinologist until 2 years after diagnosis. If that tells you anything about the area we live in.
Who were you seeing? Just the general practitioner?
Yes, it was not a doctor. It was a nurse practitioner. And
okay.
A diabetes educator. Yes. And we had the first diagnosis. I didn't know they were a very bad fit for our family because they put us on such a restricted diet for this child, who we now know also has oppositional defiant disorder. So to put them on such a restricted diet, 5 carbs or less for any snack, we had a huge food battle for probably 3 years of her taking food without insulin. I'd go out in the yard, there'd be wrappers everywhere. And then I'd go to the appointment, and her numbers were always, her A1C was always like 7.6 and under. But they would pull up her chart and they would say, "What did she eat here? Why did she eat that?" So I got so stressed out over them micromanaging us, and they would shame me. It was a personality conflict between me and the nurse practitioner.
Yeah.
For some reason, she just didn't care for me. So anyway, we switched, and then we saw an endocrinologist for the first time, and he does a lot of research and a lot of medical studies. So when I went to him, I brought the trial net study results, and he said, this child has I think it was 80% chance of getting type 1 diabetes. She's going to have it in 3 years. And I think that was in 2020. Back to the youngest, I would do random finger sticks on her because we took her out of the pool one day and she was so angry and grumpy. I did a finger stick and she was, I think, 44. And I thought, well, she's been playing in the pool, swimming. And then, a few months later, she was out at church and she had a pee accident. She was 5 at the time. She had never had that happen before.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a finger stick and she was in the 200s. So we kind of knew.
Yeah. Just take her to your endo at that point, or did you go?
I called them and I just let them know that we were watching for it and they were okay with that. And, we got 5 kids. Life is very busy. So that's one good thing. I don't get to sit and worry too much about certain things because it's just crazy.
Too busy going. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about management. So the first one has it for a couple of years prior to the next one. How are you managing? Pumping, needles? Do you have a CGM? What are you doing there?
I think we did 3 months with only finger sticks. They did not put us on a Dexcom right away. So she was diagnosed in August, and I think it was right around Thanksgiving, we got the Dexcom for her. And then I wanted to move to the insulin pump because she's the one that takes food without insulin, and I wanted her on an insulin pump. I wanted the T-Slim because we tried different phones. People gave us phones, and then the receiver, and it was always getting lost all the time. So I wanted the T-Slim pump so it'd be connected to her. We could not lose that pump. And our provider, that's why we switched providers actually, is she kept saying, no, you cannot have it until you get this child's diabetes under control. Because she could see, we were giving corrections during the day. I think we were doing, they wanted only 6 boluses a day for her. So that means
did if she takes why?
That's just the way the lady wanted it done. Was you've got too many boluses. I think we're around like 8 to 12, because she would take food, or not boluses, because they had me enter in every time I gave her an injection. That was before the pump. I'm sorry. So they'd have me enter in on the receiver every time I gave her insulin. And they said, this is too much. You need to stop. Once you get down to 6 boluses a day, you can get the insulin pump. So I finally left the practice because I just felt she would do better on an insulin pump.
Okay. Yeah, you kind of had to go find the guidance that you were looking for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And they never, where I'm at, they've never shamed us or scolded us one time. They've been really good because the endocrinologist, he also has type 1. He's on the same insulin pump, I'll be in the appointment with him and they'll say, aren't you high right now? And he's like, oh yes, I'm 200. And it's just very nice to have, to be able to see. He's an endocrinologist. He does research and he does get high. He said he gets kind of stressed out during the day sometimes. And so I think it's relatable for our kids to see he has the pump on him.
Got it. Okay. I have 2 questions here. How do you find the podcast?
I found it very quickly, actually. I think I was still in the hospital because for our first diagnosis, we homeschool our kids, and I was in a very large homeschooling group. And they were kind of following my story. That's where I got the information to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And then someone, I don't know who, it was not someone I knew, they told me about your podcast.
Nice. Did it help you? And if so, how? Like, did you find it more of like a community support, information, like a mix?
Both. I'm a researcher, information person. Any health issue we have going on, I've got a little ADHD brain. The hyper focus on new things. So I was at that time with all the kids. I used to read all the time, but it's hard. I don't have the time to read, so I do listen to podcasts. So that fit perfectly.
Gotcha.
To listen, and I listen to the educational ones, and here and there I'll listen to the stories of people. But usually I like the parenting ones with the therapist.
Oh, you like Erica?
Therapist. Yes.
Isn't she great?
With our situation we're in, I love therapists and psychologists right now. So I'll listen to those and the parenting ones. And then the Pro Tip series, I've listened to a lot of those. And the beginnings, I've re-listened to some of those on bolusing and that type of thing.
It's been valuable for you?
Yes, very. I've learned way more that way than any of our appointments we go to. And when we go with the 2 of them, we're there for 2 hours every 3 months, between all the educators and everything. I think that has been the most helpful for me.
Gotcha. Okay, great. It's just nice to know how it helps. Okay, let's pick through your the stuff that you sent me. You basically listed 4 ideas about things you might want to cover while we're talking. Caretaking for the caretaker when there are multiple to caretake. So tell me what you meant by that.
Well, I know for health issues, we started out when we were first married and having kids. My husband has chronic migraines. So it kind of puts you in a single parenting mode of taking care of that person and then running the household.
Tell me for a second, like use a month as an example, a full 30 days. What do chronic migraines look like?
Chronic migraine is if you have more than 14 migraines a month.
Okay.
If you're taking aspirin or pain reliever for headache more than 2 days a week, you should see a neurologist is basically the guideline. But if it's 14 or more, that's considered chronic migraine.
And these are crippling, I imagine, but how so? Like what's the impact on him?
For him, they are, not everyone is crippling, but we have done, well, before 2018, they did not have this specific medication. It's the CGRP antibody. It's a shot, once a month shot. Mm-hmm. So before 2018, we were going to the emergency room at least once a month for his migraines. And it's crippling that he would get extreme vomiting, nausea, dehydration. So they would put him on a cocktail. What is...
Just an anti-nausal and like other things?
Yeah. It's Reglan, Benadryl, and Toradol. Some type of... It's a narcotic cocktail, they call it.
So he's not real valuable during these episodes as a caretaker.
No. And usually back then he would be sick for days. And I would just get to a point when he started saying he wanted to die, I would pack him up and go to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And, when we were waiting in the waiting room, a lot of times he would be in his underwear. He couldn't get his shoes on, or, he would be laying on the floor in the waiting room. So it was not like, for him, it's not like you got a headache and you're, the commercials, they show the lady with their, she looks all pretty and her hand is on her head.
Do you have migraines like this pretty woman? Like, it doesn't look like that. No, Phoebe?
No. People, I'd bring him in and everyone would look horrified and they'd move out of his way because
they thought you were bringing a crackhead in there. That's why.
Yes, they had no idea. But my 2 boys also got them as children. Their abdominal migraines where they would just vomit for a couple of days and then they'd be fine. So we had a lot going on back then. The boys have grown out of it. My husband, I think it was about 2 weeks before our first diabetes diagnosis, he started taking this shot, the Aimovig shot. Okay. And that has helped a lot. So they're a lot less violent. I think since then we've only been to the hospital once or twice for a migraine.
I see. Well, that's crazy. And how long has he been living like that?
But since I met him in 1998. So when I first met him and we were dating, I had went to see my parents, and his dad called me one day. And he said, we just wanted to let you know that he has a migraine. And I'm like, okay. I just thought it was a bad headache. And they said, we called the ambulance to take him to the hospital. So I had no idea when we first met what all that entailed. Yeah,
wow. And you still married him. Look at you.
I know. Well, back then I'm a eternal optimist and happy, positive person. I just figured you could work through anything. If you work hard enough, you can work through everything. And as you get older, you realize that that's not always the case.
You're like, back then I had optimism, Scott. What do you have today?
I'm a little bit of a cynic now.
Just because things have been hard.
Yes, we have had a very hard road to hoe, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. Yes, because that was like the end of the world. We thought the migraines, I stay at home with our children. We've moved all over the United States for his job. So I think from 2004 to 2012, we'd had maybe 9 different homes that we've lived in.
Oh, I see.
With all these kids moving around.
Yeah.
We've been in the same place since 2012.
How does he make out working when the migraines come?
His job where he works is very good. It's a very odd schedule. It's not 9 to 5. Their clients come in around the clock. So he might be working weekends, nights, or days. So since it kind of checkerboards the time, because most of the migraines are early morning where the worst ones are. Like, he'll wake up with it. But with him sometimes going in later in the day, it helped him. You'd give him time to recover. And he's worked the same job since 2007, different locations. And there's a high need for what his work is. I think that helps.
And obviously you don't get a migraine while you're having sex because you have 5 kids. So I assume that's his downtime.
Although I have said after he does get them, there is such a thing as there are migraines triggered after sexual activity. So there is some people who get it afterwards, but he does not see any correlation.
Oh, good. Because that would be scary. Because if you're like,
yes.
You know what I mean? Like, so then this part's going to happen and then I'm getting a headache. That's not usually how I like to think about this part. You know what I mean?
Yes. And I just thought we were ordinary people, but people probably think we do a lot of that since we have 5 children. But I just think we're very fertile. One of us is very fertile.
I see. You've had sex 5 times in the last 10 years and every time you've had a baby. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds right.
You said one of the kids has ODD. What is that? Is it one of the kids with type 1 or no?
Yes. The first one with type 1, we did not know what it was because before we found out about the diabetes, she'd get real angry, particularly with me, like hissing and just kind of off the wall.
Did you say hissing?
Hissing. Yeah, she would hiss at me. Hiss.
Oh my God, I'd have left her at a grocery store. Okay, all right, so hold on. What happened? Like, yes. Hey, honey, one of them hisses at me. We got 4 others. What do you think? You just want to go to Buc-ee's and leave this one in the beef jerky section and get out of here? No, seriously, hissing like make me understand. Like there's an inconvenience, there's an argument. Like what leads to that?
Yes, I'd say stop doing that, and the response would be hissing. If she had hit, so she was just I always called her a fireball from a toddler age because she would get up on the table. And she'd hit her brother in the head with a croquet ball. She'd hit me in the head with a croquet ball. She was she was very sweet, but she was also just off the chain sometimes. And then I was ready to talk to our pediatrician about a behavior issue. And my husband has always been very anti-therapy. And he said, no, don't do it. They'll take her away or something. So that well visit before her type 1 diagnosis, I didn't bring it up. And then we got the diabetes diagnosis. And I thought, well, maybe it's her blood sugar. Maybe her blood sugar has been causing her to behave that way for a long time. But we've since then, we figured out it does not matter what her blood sugar is. And since then, we have done so much therapy. So for her, they say oppositional defiance disorder, ODD, agoraphobia. Selective mutism is another one that she is dealing with, and anxiety. So hold
on one second. ODD, irritable moods, argumentative, defiant behavior, aggression, vindictiveness. That all sounds like that? Okay. And then what were the other 2 things? I'm sorry?
Selective mutism.
What is that?
Because when we are out in public, she does not talk to people. She hardly talks to anybody. I see. She speaks to her neighbor friends, people she's known for a long time. But if I take her out somewhere, she will just sit by my side, not speaking to anybody or responding to most people unless she knows who they are.
And that's an anxiety disorder?
Yes. Well, we're still picking through it. We are waiting for her to have a psychological evaluation. A behavioral pediatrician told us these things, but there's a 14-month waiting list for a psychological exam for a child right now.
Jesus, how many kids speak parcel tongue? I didn't realize all this. I don't know if I'm joking or not joking, but like the hissing is like must have scared the living crap out of you, right?
It did. We had a lot of, and after her diagnosis, I think she has a lot of anger. She does not know how to communicate her feelings. And the same thing, her dad. I think she's on track with her dad. He cannot communicate his emotions very well either. But sometimes she would say she wanted to kill me. She wanted to kill herself after the diabetes diagnosis. And it was, we had I had a very difficult time because I was the one dealing with her all the time.
Sure.
I am the diabetes manager for both of them. I do 99% of it.
Are you okay? What do you do for yourself?
Just give me a second.
No, you're fine. Take your time.
I will say I appear to be okay. Because we're pretty active in the community. A lot of people know we're a family because not many people have 5 kids anymore. So we're involved in a church. I started running a few years ago. I go to the gym. I do therapy now. I got a dog a couple of years ago, a golden retriever. I walk her every day. I have a friend in the neighborhood. They have a golden retriever too. They have a play date almost every day. So I do get out. I do things. I'm not going to lie. We are in a very difficult place. It's not just her situation. What my husband is dealing with is a very kind of dark, to me, mental health disorder. I did not know existed until almost 2 years ago.
I'm sorry. Your husband has something going on that you have not mentioned so far?
Yes.
Are you willing
to?
He
does.
Do you want to skip it or you want to say it?
I'll say it. That's why I am on here, because younger people probably know, because my 19-year-old says everyone younger than me knows mental health, but us older people don't know anything about it. So way back, he would kind of get angry over what I thought were small things. And we just thought he had a bad temper, or he was very organized and didn't like things out of place, because I'm kind of ADHD. I tend to lose things, forget things.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw that early in our marriage some, but it would it'd blow over pretty quickly. And it was far and few between.
Right.
Probably when our oldest was about 10, they started to have a little bit of a power struggle that she did not seem respectful to him. And he was have a hard time with her because she should just be obedient all the time. And the 5th child, she was actually a surprise. We were not planning on having a 5th child. And after she was born, she was a baby. He just casually mentioned to me one day that he was thinking of killing himself. And that really freaked me out. I talked to a friend of mine that was a nurse practitioner, and she said, well, do you want to inpatient him? And I said, no, because he's very anti-therapy, mental health treatment. So we did not. I didn't do anything. We just kind of wrote it out. And then it happened another time where I saw him leave the house with some things in hand, and he just acted strangely, but nothing happened from that. And then he started, if he'd get upset, he would just leave, like drive off. And I would, try, beg him to come back. I need you home. We'll do better, that kind of thing. I'll be a better wife, better mom. Just come back home, because I've been home not working since 2004. He's our sole source of income. And then it started more and more. He would talk about he's been thinking of leaving, just leaving the family. And
you said he left the house with stuff in hand. Like, you mean like a gun or something to hurt himself with, or
yes. Okay. Yes. I didn't know what it was. His work bag, and it was not usually he was wearing shorts and sandals. He had hurt his back. We were waiting for him to have a back surgery at that time. I followed him out to the car, and he's not a very emotional, like crying type, and he's like, I'm sorry. I love you. Tell the kids I love them. Then he drove off, and I knew in my heart, I knew he wasn't going to do anything that day, and he did not. But it was concerning, but I didn't know what it was. And I think it was 2022, like that summer, I started seeing a therapist for me, because I just felt like I was doing everything wrong. Like I wasn't a good enough wife. I wasn't a good enough mom. And someone recommended I read the book, Stop Walking on Eggshells. And when I read that book, the first part, it talks about borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. Mm-hmm. And there's 9 traits that someone will have for, I think it's borderline and narcissistic personality order. And I cried through that whole list, because I picked out at least 5 or 6 for him. And then the book says, don't tell them that they have it because it's such a difficult thing for them to deal with. They don't know how to deal with emotions, basically. It's a big fear of abandonment. So when he was saying he was going to leave, he's worried that we're going to leave him. So he's going to leave us before we can leave him, if that makes sense. That's where a lot of that abandonment thing comes from. I did not tell him, but you're supposed to stop caretaking. I'm a big caretaker. I will make you nice meals and do everything for you and set up all your doctor appointments and completely make you feel good and well taken care of. But that is what I needed to stop doing. That's what you can't do it all. They have to do things for themselves and their own mental health. So I don't know what made it come to a head, but one night he woke me up. We have firearms in our house, and he had loaded a weapon in our bedroom and was, ready to, take his life. So I said, well, I think you have this. I read about this. And, he kind of calmed down because he was saying that he just cannot get all these things out of his head that he's thinking.
Yeah.
And so I said, I think you've got this. I read the list to him and he said, this does sound kind of right. And this was about it'll be 2 years in October.
Mm-hmm.
So we went through the list and I was thinking in my mind that, remember earlier I said, if you work hard enough, you can get through everything. I figured that he knew this little bit that he would just be like me and pick it up and run with it. But he didn't. He doesn't want therapy and all of that stuff. So that's kind of where we have been almost 2 years of him going in this circle again of this stuff happens over and over again. And I'm doing more for myself.
Without getting help, it's not going to end, obviously.
No. Yeah. And if you were to read up on it, it's not a medication thing. Bipolar disorder, my understanding is more of a chemical imbalance and they can give medication. The personality disorders, it's your personality that needs to change. So what they want it's something called dialectical behavior therapy, DBT therapy. And if you were to aggressively go at it, you would be at doing therapy twice a week, taking DBT classes and always working on this. I think it's a 2-year course of once to twice a week therapy classes for 2 years.
He knows this exists?
Yeah, I've talked to him since then. We visited a couple different therapists. For this, you want someone that is older, that's been in practice for a long time, does the DBT therapy. And he's had a couple they just tell him he has the traits. They'll call it a spectrum. And I think the narcissistic personality disorder, they don't think they like to tell people they have that. So
you think that that therapy would help him, but he's not willing to do it?
It can help him. I mean, you can go to therapy, but you have to put work into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming he goes and does what he needs to do. You think it would help him, but he's not interested in doing it. Is that correct?
Yes, he's gone a handful of times since we figured it out. And we've had a lot of things go down in our house since that one night I told you about. And I have to draw a line in the sand as we have to do this therapy, for us to stay together. So he did have one appointment a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And then he said he couldn't get in until the middle of June, but he only scheduled 2 more appointments. He would really need to be getting, let's fill up her calendar for the rest of the year and knock it all out. So I don't know I'm not really sure that. And when I set up to be on the podcast, I picked the farthest date possible, which is now, because I was hoping I'd have more of a better idea what direction we're going.
But nothing's changed.
I don't know. No, it is a little more definitive because we're at the kind of the point whether we have to figure out if we're going to stay together or not, because it's strongly affecting all of our children.
Sure. Not
just the diabetic children, because they see things and hear things that they should not be seeing and hearing. But because we're a Christian homeschool family, we're supposed to be all good.
Not going the way you expected.
No, it is not at all how I expected. I'm actually looking into perhaps working full time in the fall and putting my children all in public school, the ones that are still in school.
because you're trying to become more self-sufficient because you think this can't go on?
Yeah, yes. And sadly, I mean, our home environment is not pleasant with all this going on. My two older boys said that just last night, I talked to them about maybe going to public school, and they seem okay with it. The one said, I'd rather be there than at home all the time. And I mean, we do things. He works, but both my oldest son is 17. So he has a part-time job, and they have friends and they have activities, but he just, he's ready. I think he wants to try something different. And the older boys are fine. My 8 and 12-year-old are not. But we're working on that.
No, of course. I mean, it's obviously encompassing and difficult and a lot to consider, but I think you're thinking about it correctly about separating the kids from it, honestly. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it's too much to go through as a kid. And the repercussions from that are going to be, have you heard of the ACEs, the 10 ACEs of trauma?
I have not.
Okay. So they're going to come up in a series about resilience with Erica that's going to come out pretty soon. But basically, there's these 10 childhood experiences that have the potential to change like the course of your life, right? Mm-hmm. And they are physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, mental illness. And what that means is a household member with a mental illness that impacts their ability to provide proper care for the child. Mm-hmm. This has a profound impact on the child. The experience could be depression, a household member attempting suicide, or other mental illness. The 7th thing on the list is substance abuse. So alcohol or drinking in the household.
We don't have that. That's the one thing we got going for us.
Imprisonment. Somebody in the household has been incarcerated, witnessing abuse. And then has somebody witnessed abuse?
We don't have any physical abuse, but it from what I have read, we've got emotional, verbal, financial, and spiritual. I don't think you are a Christian, but if I'm told I'm not being a biblical wife for certain things.
You get shamed through religion?
Yeah. Yes. And I am a Christian. Jesus died on the cross for my sins. I know that, but that does not mean I need to be perfect in all things, because, things will happen. He said pulls the attic door down. We can hear it, and gets his bags and throws them down. I'm packing up. I'm leaving. They'll hear that. In my little one, the teenagers, I know they care, but they act like they don't care. They're like, he's just trying to get attention. But my 8-year-old, she will cry her little heart out because her daddy is.
Well, so my bigger point here is not that that's not horrifying. I'm sorry. The 10th thing on the list is losing a parent to separation, divorce, or death. But, how many of these can you count on your fingers when I read physical abuse?
Not physical. We've got a verbal, emotional, mental health disorder, attempted suicide. We've had several times. I did have to call the authorities in December. The kids all saw him leaving the house for that, but he was not arrested. And the separation, that is a big topic in our family right now. I'm trying to decide which way to go, because like I said, I've been at home with the children. I have a college degree, but when you don't work for 18 or 19 years, that does not mean very much.
Yeah. Listen, Phoebe, if it makes you feel any better, I have a fairly successful business, and a lot of people listen to my podcast. I don't think I could get a job. So I think if I went out in the working world, they'd be like, "You're a what now?" And I'd be like, yeah. No, I've been a podcaster and a stay-at-home dad. They'd be like, "Yeah, no, thank you." Listen, the reason I bring up the ACE is because these adverse childhood experiences are indicators for problems your kids are going to have in the future, but it's not a set in stone thing. And so while I have never once advocated for the dissolution of somebody's family, I do think that if you remove your kids from that situation, that gives them a better chance to not find themselves in that situation as adults. And then it makes me wonder, of that list that I read to you, how many of those things do you think your husband grew up with?
He had both parents growing up. So I don't really I don't know, but I think there is parts of it. I think the difference is, I think his mom just went in line and kept him happy, and that kept the home better. for the kids. I think that it was there, the mental
same
health
stuff.
disorder.
So you think the father-in-law has it too, and the mother-in-law just put her head down and made it all go away as best she could?
Yes. What is it? The codependency? Because that's what I would do. I would just try to keep the peace. I don't like conflict. So I just tried to appease him. And then at some point there was like a switch, because he called, he was out driving around and he says, I'm going to take this job in another state and start over. And because I was at home and all of our kids were little and I wanted to be home with our babies, I would beg for him to come back. And then one day I'm like, this is so humiliating. I should not have to. I'm not that bad of a person that I need to beg my husband to come.
Well, first of all, let's say this. You're not a bad person at all. So it's probably hard from your perspective to see it, but you're describing like a shit show in 17 different directions and not a thing that you or anybody else should have to deal with. And listen, respect to the fact that he has obvious issues and we'd like to see him get helped. If it's not possible for him to be helped and hope for a resolution, then you have to ask yourself, like, well, how long do I let my kids sit around this fire burning at their feet when he's not trying to put it out? And maybe you can't blame him for that, which is fine. Like maybe he's so far down, a direction that it's not something he can break free on his own. Like also no disrespect about that. If you have a mental illness, you're probably not the best one to help yourself out of it. But
no,
at some point, like you're not describing anything joyful. You're not describing anything fulfilling. It's a one-way relationship. It basically feels like you've described, there's this guy that lives in my house and he puts money in a pile. And so here's all the things he does. And we just try to ignore him the best we can because there's money coming. Is that right at this point? I'm sorry.
It is. And I think he can tell somehow he's able to keep working. And we had a very obviously he was not like this when I married him.
Of course.
We had a lot of good times. We've lived in a lot of neat places. And I think my understanding is with the disorder, especially as the kids get older, they feel like for me, I could keep the peace by doing things the way he liked it. But you have more kids, they start getting older, they talk back a little, they get their own mindset and they don't agree with everything he does. And then we have one kid with type 1 diabetes. And then all of a sudden my attention is pretty much off of him, because I'm trying to figure out diabetes and manage this. And then 18 months later, there's celiac. Okay, we have to learn how to do all the gluten-free stuff. And we're doing diabetes. So it just took all the attention off of him.
Oh, no. You were basically, your job was to throw the dragon meat so it didn't burn everybody. And then you got distracted with other more important things. And now suddenly you can really see what happens to him if you're not placating him and basically petting him and telling him to stay calm.
Yes.
Yeah. No, listen, this is obviously difficult, but I mean, so tell me something. Like, do you have a plan?
I'm working on a plan, and it's not funny, but it is. We lived here long enough. I've gotten to know enough ladies, and that's another reason why I wanted to talk about this, because there are so many people. I know 3 or 4 personal friends that I've had a long time living very similar situations, and I had no idea until about 2 years ago. I don't tell everybody, but a lot of people know what I am dealing with now. Our church knows. I've talked to them. My neighbors know. I've got safe places to go, like 3 different houses in the neighborhood to go to, and my kids know where to go. I'm working with a domestic abuse advocate right now.
Yeah.
That kind of pushes me to do more than what I would want to do. At my church, I have some friends that are law enforcement. He's former U.S. Marshal and SWAT team. So so I have people I can talk to. And the thing I'm really battling is with myself, because I know I'm going to have to make a decision, and I've kind of kicked the can down the road because I don't want to make the decision. I
understand.
He's not going to be the one who can think clearly and do it. So right. if it comes that we need to separate, it'll be me having to make the call. And I will look like the bad person to the children and everybody.
Well, listen, that sounds like it might be inevitable because your luck is terrible. Like, I mean, honestly, like as you described this whole life, here's something people don't know. You went to your church to find quiet to record because you like, my house is going to be too loud. And then a smoke detector and like a fire alarm went off while you were there. Like, you must be like, God, nothing goes right for me. like that's exactly what I thought when that went off. I'm like, this poor lady. I mean, Jesus Christ.
No, that is my life in a nutshell. And I left my keys inside. I hope I'll be able to find them. Yes, my life. People that hear my life, they just.
Yeah, no, it's that old adage. It feels like if I wrote this as a movie, people would be like, "Oh, it's too over the top. I can't believe all this." Yeah,
Yes, it is. We have dealt with a lot.
Jeez.
Yes, they've got me locked out of the building. The smoke detector went off, but I'll just hang out by my car. I'll go back later and get my car keys.
You're going to be able to get in? Are you sure?
Yes, they have a doorbell.
Oh, I was going to say, where you just ring the bell like Jesus opens the door or something like that? Is that how it works? Or is there a guy that works there, I guess, maybe?
Secretary. Yeah.
Secretary.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
I didn't mean to.
You don't mean to what?
I don't cause trouble.
You're not. Please don't. First of all, don't apologize to me. You didn't do anything wrong. To be perfectly honest with you, I think it's good. I think it puts an exclamation point on your story. Honestly, like just everything at this moment seems hard. You know what I mean?
Yes, everything is hard. So, and the other thing I want to encourage people, because I did not have any friends in our neighborhood until COVID hit, because we started walking. The kids were older. I started walking. I started running and meeting people. And for a while, there were actually a group of people that would come in our front yard every afternoon. We put out the chairs and there'd be a bunch of people sitting in our neighbors coming to talk to us because there's nothing to do during COVID. Right. So I met a friend in our neighborhood that he's like 18 years older than me, married, has a dog. The kid's like playing with his dog. And just by talking to, I hate to use the word normal people, but emotionally healthy people, it really showed what was going on in my life. And if that hadn't happened, I don't know if I would have seen it. I think it would have taken me longer to see it because I don't know how to describe it. It's just a healthy, emotional person that, that didn't get upset over little things all the time. And
normal. The word you're looking for is normal. I think it's possible you have been in this for so long. I don't think you recognize how strange it is.
No, because my parents would come from across the country. We'd see them once a year, and they would buy things for the house. And my husband would get really upset and disrespected and make me return stuff. If they, the only way they could get gifts for us was, they'd come visit, and we'd go shopping while he was at work, and he might not notice that they bought the kids a bunch of underwear and shoes and things. Yeah, it's because I'd have to kind of keep it on the down low that someone's buying stuff for us. I'm
going to say something that I can't be sure of, but if you pack those kids up right now and left, and I don't know what your situation is financially or I know there's a lot to consider, right? But you've also, you've talked about a lot of disorder in the house. There's firearms there, people threatening to kill themselves, these power moves on you about I'm leaving, that's just to keep you in line. You know what I mean? That stuff.
Yes.
And all this is going on. And I can't be certain of this. There's a large part of me that thinks that if you broke free of this and got yourself reestablished somewhere else and got some time away from it, that a year or two from now, you'd look back on this story and think, I can't believe I didn't see this completely for what it was. Because this is horrifying and you're laughing through it. Like, and I know probably laughing to not cry, but I genuinely don't know that you know how bad this is.
No, the description, because I listen to a lot of podcasts and things, and the description is like you put the frog in the cold water and you slowly heat it up, and you don't even know.
You don't know you're boiling alive. Yeah, you have no idea right now. Like your description makes me feel like a SWAT team should drop in that house and extricate you. Like I'm not even joking. I'm worried what happens if you tell him you're leaving, or if you ask him to leave.
Yes, I just had that conversation with a friend last night, because it's been kind of coming to a head. What he does now is he just stays away as much as possible and comes home after we are sleeping. And I wanted to talk. We're going to say, you need, we're actually meeting with our church pastor tomorrow. My husband called him to talk about this. I don't know what he wants to accomplish, but it's kind of coming to a head right now. And my friend, she said, well, where were you going to go? And I was going to go to the ponds across our road, and she's like, no, you need to go somewhere public. And I was trying to set up a meeting with him, and he says, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to come home after you guys are asleep tonight.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you might need a cop, a priest, and 3 other like armed guards to have this conversation. Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
What does better look like to you? Like, what has to happen for you to stay with him and be happy and fulfilled?
Like you said, I don't even know it's possible. What my plan was, or what my hope was when we figured it out, was he would do all this treatment. We've had in the last month, I finally got him to go to a psychiatrist, and they wanted medication for the depression. He's not doing that. I wanted regular therapy sessions. He's not doing that. He has an appointment in June 15th. I don't know if they're going to put it all in the books, but I don't think he can do it. So I would just need to see that he is being proactive, and all this wild stuff to simmer down, because we had a horrible weekend, just all kinds of things going on, but I don't think we can get past it.
Yeah, none of that's going to change. Like, your life is like you're living inside of a tornado, inside of a hailstorm. And so this weekend was tough, or that's always going to be like that. And I'm not even telling you, like, your kids have some issues too. You might move away and be like, this is not good. It's just better and more possible for you to focus on what's happening. Listen, you're 50. How long have you been married?
We just had our 23rd wedding anniversary.
So you got married
3 weeks ago.
You were what, 27 when you got married?
Yes, we met. I think I was 23 when we met, just right out of college.
Okay, that's my point. How many serious adult relationships did you have before this person?
This was the very first one.
You do not even know how you're supposed to be treated.
No, I cannot even fathom what a good. I mean, my parents were together. My dad he's a prince. Everyone just loves him. He is so good to my mom. And that's what blows me away, is how I even got.
Yeah, well, that ship sailed. But I'm just going to tell you that if I did one of the things that you listed, my wife would beat me against the head, throw me right out the front door, and lock the door. If I did all of them, she'd shoot me and then tell the judge what I did and go, I thought it was okay. Seriously, like, there's no world where you should be treated like this. None.
Well, and it doesn't start. All this radical stuff was not going on early. Early on, it was, hey, you lost the remote control. I need it right now.
His thing's gotten worse and it's ramped up, but it's always been there to some degree or a level, right? Like, when you stop and look back, like, has there ever been a time where if you did something quote unquote wrong, you weren't told you weren't being a good Christian, or I'm sorry to say this, but some shit like that, some controlling decision, like, I'll make a power move, I'll leave, you're begging him. Like really, think about how he's treating you. You're the one begging him not to go?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I will say, I had, pretty low confidence. I'd not been in a relationship before. So, and then when you have a bunch of small children, babies at home, not working. It is scary to think, he's going to leave. I've got all, these 4. It didn't get like that until we had 4 at home. And I think we had just had, it was after the last one. So we had 5 kids within 11 years time.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 5 kids, 11 years old and under, with me seeing no real way for me to support them. And that's the other thing, he will sometimes say, if you leave, I will quit my job, so you won't have the, even there's the fear you might not even have child support.
Listen, I don't know how to say this like politely, so let me just talk right around it. I mean, are you wealthy?
No, we're not wealthy.
No.
We've got 5 kids, high medical needs. We're middle class.
Okay.
Maybe lowerish middle class.
You don't have to tell me this, but you told me so much else, I can't imagine you'll say no. Well, how much money is he bringing in a year?
Probably about 160.
About 150. About 150?
60.
$160,000. Okay. Well, listen, if you get divorced, he gets to keep some of it too. So you're looking at existing off of, I'm going to guess about $80,000, you and those 5 kids. And, you can get a job certainly and take some of that money, and you might have to lean on social services of some kind to help make the rest of it up. But I think that gives your kids the best possible chance at a reasonable adult life, because I hate to say this, Phoebe, and I'm sure you can pull yourself around it and have some happiness in your life, but I think your main focus has got to be on trying to save the kids from this happening to them. Because you're not fixing this relationship. It's not like he didn't make a conscious decision to act like this. This is crossed wires in his head. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And you're not gonna rewire that today. And even if he pulls himself together, it could take him a decade or more to help to get that together. And by then, you're gonna have 5 kids who look more like him or you, meaning either they're gonna come off like he does, or they're going to be getting taken advantage of like you do. You're only going to create 1 or 2 different kinds of people in this relationship right now. It's going to be people who get taken advantage of and are told they're not any good. You have maybe a half a dozen times in the last hour referred to yourself as not a good person somehow. I can't even understand that. And so think about your daughter. Do you want your daughter to be with a guy that treats her like this? No, but she's seeing you treated like this, and she's gonna think that's what's normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had therapy last week, and she, it's a secular organization, and she told me at the end, she said, I prayed before seeing you. She said, and before I asked her a question, and she said, you need to think about your kids. Your first job right now is to protect your children.
Yeah, I agree.
So this morning, we live there's a elementary school right in our neighborhood. My youngest, she's going into 3rd grade. So this morning I did apply for 3 different jobs to work in the school system that, it has benefits, summers off, school breaks off. And then I'm going to, I don't know if I can say the company names, but I'm also going to apply for, Dexcom and Tandem Diabetes to see if I can do a customer support work. I know a lot of them work from home because you call them and you can hear kids and animals in the background.
And you can hear the prices right while they're telling you about your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Listen, those are great ideas. You have to, and I listen, I shudder to give somebody advice. People are probably laughing, but I don't want you to do something that I think is right. I've only known you for an hour, but from what you've described, I don't see the downside of you extricating yourself and your kids from this situation. It's not like you've once said, listen, I have a deep love affair with this man, and it's breaking my heart that this is how he is. You're saying, we're already talking about getting separated. It's not even that. You're just, from my perspective, you are so beaten down. I don't even think you know where you are supposed to be. And I wonder if getting away from it, like, I mean, it's not going to be easy. I don't want to like joke with you and say, oh, just getting away is going to fix it. That's going to be a step. And there's probably going to be a moment in the first 6 months afterwards where you feel completely alone and you think, I did the wrong thing. I got to go back. I need help. But those are the moments when you have to realize he is not actually helping you with anything except for money. And then the state you live in can compel him to do that. So,
yes.
You know what I mean?
It's a lot of fear. Well, I know it's not enough to support the two families. So that is my step ahead. I'm starting to save a little money. I've got my advocate I'm working with. I'm the type of person I need some type of plan. So that's why I'm applying for some jobs. We've got summer talking about getting the kids in school. So if you look at the domestic abuse side of it, the advocate I'm working with, and I'm in some support groups, there's a lot of people that live with this. You have no idea.
No, that's the thing that's making me the saddest is I'm thinking I'm having this conversation with you and I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. And a lot of people are probably like, this is Tuesday for me. So, like
Yes.
I believe that there's people who are going to be able to help you get through it. They could also probably, I don't know if you have, as a family, if you have savings, they could probably talk to you about how to make sure that, when you tell him you're leaving or he's getting out, that he can't go empty your accounts and things like that. Like there's ways to get ahead of that stuff too.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's the part I'm working on. So it looks kind of small, but the people who know where I've started, they've said in the last year I've made huge progress. It's kind of a small way to go.
I'm very impressed. I'm very, very impressed with how you're handling this. If you want to know the truth, I can't. Seriously, I can't imagine you didn't just like he's like, I'm leaving. I would have been like, oh yeah, you buddy, I'm leaving. How about I'll brace you to the car? How's that sound? But like you're not doing that. You got your eye on your kids. You're making smart decisions. You're talking to people to make sure you're not making rash decisions. I'm very impressed with how you're handling this. Seriously.
Well, I think you need to exhaust all of the avenues, and that is what I'm trying to do because it is a big.
Feels like you've done that, by the way.
Yes. Well, we have this. I'll be back here tomorrow with this appointment. I don't know what the purpose of it is, but we'll go through it and then we'll go from there. I'm just not ready to take the jump yet, but I have people that are willing to help, and I'd like to stay here. We lived here for 12 years. Our kids know this is their home. They work here. They've got friends here. Yeah. We have an amazing neighborhood. So that's what I'm trying to work out is if there's a way we can stay.
Also,
and not
have you considered, would any of the kids say I'm staying with dad?
Well, that is my concern because the two youngest are the ones with type 1 diabetes, and he lavishes attention on them, taking them out to eat and buying them things and doing fun things. Because he'll say, Mom and the teenagers, they don't like me and stuff like that. So they are very attached to him. And that is part of the.
Well, he's doing to them what he did to you.
Yeah, he's good. He's very good to those two girls.
He's grooming them.
Yeah.
To be his fans.
Yes. But they also have the diabetes, which he does not manage. And that was kind of a tipping point we had a few weeks ago. I just left home a few minutes ago, and our 12-year-old, her infusion set fell off, and I was driving out of the neighborhood, and he's called, and I said, can you do it? I will come back if you cannot do it, because he does, if the alarms are going off in the night and he's awake, he'll wake me up to go do the stuff. So he says, yes, I can do it. But then they got in an argument. He didn't like her attitude or something. She called me. The other kids got into it. There are two teenagers at home. They started arguing with him because they didn't like how he was treating the 12-year-old. I got the two teenagers to leave and come to me. She wanted to stay with him because she loves daddy. And then she calls me, and she's never put an infusion set on all by herself. She's 12. We're going to start teaching her this year to do it.
Right.
I had to FaceTime her how to put it on because he would not put it on for her. He was so upset. And while I'm putting that set on her, she's on FaceTime, and I can hear him in the background talking about how he's leaving, he's done, he's packing, he's leaving.
Because of her attitude? Around of an infusion set change?
Yes, I think she was rough. We'll tell
Phoebe,
her.
let me jump in here. I'm sorry, this is indelicate for people listening, and I am not unfeeling for people with mental health disorders, but he's out of his mind, and you have to get away from him.
That's what I am thinking. This is her first time doing this by herself, and I don't know if she'll remember it, but this is what she has in the background is her dad talking about leaving her over something that started over the set.
Oh yeah, this is the beginning of a backslide for her that you won't even recognize till she's in her 30s. Like I'm saying, like the small things that happen to us day by day take forever to build up and turn into a good thing or a bad thing, and you'll never know what they were when you look back on them, but they are for certain the reason you get where you're going. And so you just
by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah, exactly. And so like maybe this won't be the thing, but all she's going to have the memory of my dad was unstable, or how about my diabetes is the reason he left? Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? And shitty people do shitty stuff like that all the time.
Yes. I know it happens, but that was the big mental shift for me. And he knows that he knew he messed up big time for me to hear that. And that we've just been extra crazy the last few weeks because I treat him completely different. He says, you look at me like I'm a cashier at Walmart, and I'm friendlier with a cashier at Walmart.
Yeah, that guy's never yelled at me, but okay. Listen, my father left when I was like 13, and he told my mom, he put this on her. He told my mom, I'm leaving because I can't take the kids. And then he specifically highlighted me because I was less willing to just take his shit and like bow my head, right? And so I grew up, I had to get through that. Like at 13 years old, like, oh, my dad like abandoned our family and it was my fault. And I know it's not. And I even knew then it wasn't, but it didn't mean that him just saying it out loud didn't hang it on me for 20 years to figure out. You know what I mean? So
you still have it inside a little.
Of course,
you heard that.
Yeah, of course. I still have. And listen, I've been able to like fight through most of this crap, but it's still, I can't tell you it doesn't impact you. We're planning right now. I'm planning to announce, I think next week, that I'm going to like put on a cruise that goes out of Texas for people who listen to the podcast. Right. And we're genuinely not sure, like by the time this goes up, maybe we'll have a little better of an idea, but we're generally not sure how many people are actually going to want to do this. And there's a business side of it. I have to basically fill 200 staterooms for this thing to just break even. Right. And then there has to be even more if I want to be able to afford to bring speakers along, or otherwise it's just going to be me speaking. It's going to be more of a vacation. Right. And so I'm talking to the person who's setting this up, and she's like, oh, you'll get that many people. And I'm like, I don't know if I will or not.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, but but I'm telling you, Phoebe, I don't know that. Like, I can't, everyone around me is like, oh my God, this is going to be really popular. I have a friend of mine who used to work at JDRF and some other places. She's like, this will be bigger than something the JDRF puts on. And I'm like, I don't think 10 people are going to do it.
No, you'll fill it up.
Listen, the line I'm trying to draw here is, why do I feel that way in the face of everything that would seem to say the opposite? And I think it's because of little things that happened to me over the years growing up that leave me incapable of actually feeling about myself, even being able to see myself the way I actually am, or my surroundings the way they actually are. And I
agree.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, if you have any way to safely get out of this, I hope you take that opportunity.
Well, that's what we're working on.
Good for you.
And that's why I said we did the farthest. Thought I'd have a better resolution, but I think we're getting close to it. I just need to get some details I've worked out.
You're doing great. Listen, I'm going to let you go. This is a lot to talk about. You must be exhausted emotionally from having this conversation. Let me just throw this in here at the end for all you ladies. If you were my daughters, I would tell you the same thing I told my daughter. Every boy who's talking to you wants to have sex with you. You have to know that when it starts, and then look at every one of their thoughts from that angle. Is this a loving thing to say? I thought it was. When I sent my daughter off to college, I said, you're going to meet some lovely people, some really kind people, nice people. But in general, you have to wonder what people's motivations are. And you really need to know them before you start giving yourself over to them emotionally or sexually or in any other way that you give of yourself to a person. Because for every great person there is out in the world, there's one who isn't. They all look the same at first, you know? Yeah. So you really have to like, I'm sorry, I know it's 20 some years ago for you, but like there were probably signs in there where you could have been like, why did he say that? Or how come I'm being treated this way? Or like that kind, or if you had more self-confidence, maybe you would have been like, I'm not going to let him talk to me like that. And again, those 1,000 paper cuts, right? And now look at where it leads all these years later. And like you said, this happens to way more people than you think. Also, it happens in reverse. There are plenty of guys who are lovely, who are out there, you know, married to horrifying women who are treating them poorly too. This is not a male, you know, specific trait.
No, I know men living with the same thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. Anyway, take care of yourselves. Do your research before you give away your hoo-hoo. And good luck to you, Phoebe. I love that we called you Phoebe. That was like, I love that name. That's a good name.
Yes. And maybe someday I'll have an update for you. So I will let you know.
Oh, I would love that. You keep me in mind for a couple of years down the road. I think people would like to know what happened, you know, and what you were able to figure out. Because I have a lot of confidence that you're going to figure this out. Do you?
Yes. I think so. It will just be a very painful thing, but we'll figure it out.
Oh, it's going to be horrifying. I don't want to lie to you. There'll be a retrospect moment where you'll be far enough away from this horrifying part to look back on both of the horrifying parts and go, it was worth going through that to get away from that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think there's a somewhere over the rainbow for you. It just might take you a little longer to get there than you hope.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good for you. Okay. All right. I'm going to let you go. Hold on 1 second for me.
Okay.
Did you know if just one person in your family has type 1 diabetes, you're up to 15 times more likely to get it too? So screen it like you mean it. One blood test can spot type 1 diabetes early. Tap now, talk to a doctor, or visit screenedfortype1.com for more info. A huge thanks to the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Learn more and get started today at contournext.com/juicebox. If you're living with type 1 diabetes, the After Dark collection from the Juicebox Podcast is the only place to hear the stories that no one else talks about. From drugs to depression, self-harm, trauma, addiction, and so much more. Go to juiceboxpodcast.com, up in the menu, and click on After Dark. There you'll see a full list of all of the After Dark episodes. Okay, well, here we are at the end of the episode. You're still with me? Thank you. I really do appreciate that. What else could you do for me? Why don't you tell a friend about the show or leave a 5-star review? Maybe you could make sure you're following or subscribed in your podcast app. Go to YouTube and follow me, or Instagram, TikTok. Oh gosh, here's one. Make sure you're following the podcast in the private Facebook group as well as the public Facebook page. You don't want to miss, please. Do you not know about the private group? You have to join the private group. As of this recording, it has 51,000 members in it. They're active, talking about diabetes. Whatever you need to know, there's a conversation happening in there right now. And I'm there all the time. Tag me. I'll say hi. Hey, what's up, everybody? If you've noticed that the podcast sounds better and you're thinking like, how does that happen? What you're hearing is Rob at Wrong Way Recording doing his magic to these files. So if you want him to do his magic to you, wrongwayrecording.com. You got a podcast? You want somebody to edit it? You want Rob.